Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Initiative, ComicBook.com's favorite and really only place to talk about all things anime, manga, webtoons, and more. My name is Megan Peters. I am your host, and I am here with my good friends and colleagues, Evan Valentine and Nick Valdez.
Hey,
What's up,
everybody.
guys?
Howdy, everybody.
Hey.
Hello. It's another week. A lot of wild anime and manga stuff happening. We will not dive too deep into this topic, mainly because we're a family friendly show. But this morning I got a wonderful text message from Evan just saying that was a Chainsaw Man chapter, and you know what? He was right. It was in fact a chapter of Chainsaw Man. If you guys are not aware,
yeah,
and you guys are over the age of 18. I guess you might want to go check out that chapter because everybody's talking about it online.
I mean, just a little bit of it, starting my negativity off early. I think this is the perfect jumping off point for me. Like, I think I'm good. I've made it through Chainsaw Man.
Chainsaw Man, are you done?
Yeah, like I've made it through so many of its biggest moments and so many of its gross things, but and in part 2, I was already kind of like, on the edge of where it's going because like it kind of seems like I don't even know what's happening anymore. Like it seems like it doesn't know what it's doing anymore, and so I'm like, after this chapter, I was like, I think that's it for me. I think I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Well, you've heard it here, folks. You've heard it here first. Anime Initiative, Nick Valdez is signing off from Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
Understandable, I suppose.
I have to do something impressive to reel back the love from Nick, I can only assume. Yeah, we're not gonna get into it too much. I'll just leave it with this. It is a very Evangelion coded moment.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's where I leave it. So to get onto the actual show today, because we do have a ton of news here on Anime Initiative, we are going to be talking about some of the biggest news that's happened in the last 7 days. We got some pretty solid Netflix updates concerning Godzilla, who is obviously my son, as I've mentioned many times, but also with anime, and also a couple stories that are involving TikTok, Studio Ghibli, and if you didn't hear for some reason or another, we were right. My Hero Academia is moving into its epilogue. The final war is over. We have confirmed it, Nick, and we're going to talk about what that epilogue means for us. And in the second half of our show today, we got the schedule drop for Anime Expo 2024. If you're not aware of what Anime Expo is, it's essentially what I like to call the anime version of San Diego Comic-Con, and the schedule is giving me like heart palpitations. There's so much happening. So pray for the three of us right now, and plenty of time. But first, let's talk about Netflix and let's talk about my son, because Godzilla -1, it's streaming. It's here. You have no excuse if you've not seen it at this point, right? Like, is that what we're saying? Is that our stance at this point?
Yeah, like it's the most successful Godzilla film ever made for a reason. It won an Academy Award for a reason. And I get it, right? It was in theaters for a short time. It actually extended its run in theaters because it was such like a money maker internationally. But if you still didn't see it, I still got it. I'm like, okay, it's the theaters. It takes, it takes time and effort to get to the theater to see Godzilla. I get it. But now there's literally no excuse. If you can watch it on your phone during like lunch breaks, so like, you're fine. Come on. Like, see it already. Just get it out of the way. Because if not, you're literally missing out on the best Godzilla thing in literally in the 70-year history of the franchise. That's it. It's a done deal. Come on.
It was amazing that this was a stealth release too, because I did a write-up the day before this hit Netflix. It started releasing globally before it hit North America, and the social media account for Godzilla -1 was teasing something, and I thought immediately, oh, sequel time to finally confirm a sequel. But this is probably the next best thing in terms of this arriving onto Netflix. And as Nick said, my previous favorite Godzilla thing was Shin Godzilla, made by the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, Hideki Anno. So I had really high expectations for Godzilla -1, and Godzilla -1 is now my favorite Godzilla thing. It's so good.
Here's the
Watch
thing
this
we
movie.
have to say. Shin Godzilla is also the reason that Kaiju number 8 ever came to life. So, you know, Godzilla -1 is still my favorite, but Shin Godzilla just took a step even closer to that top spot, if
Yep.
not with association with Kaiju number 8.
I mean, but that's the thing. We don't know what Godzilla -1 has inspired yet, right?
Oh,
So that's the beauty of
true.
it.
Yeah.
That is true.
I mean,
We're still, you know.
We are in the midst of like a new kaiju renaissance era here with, you know,
Man, I
Godzilla
love that.
-1, Godzilla Kong, like doing box office like juggernaut numbers. You have Ultraman Rising hitting Netflix later this month. You
It
have
looks
like
so good.
yeah, you have Ultraman meet the Avengers comics. You've got like Kaiju number 8 taking over the anime scene. It's literally like a great time to like kaiju, and I assume this is only the start of like a boom. We're gonna see more. You know, I'm assuming studios are out there going, you know what? People really do like monsters, don't they?
They like when big monsters go roar and
Yeah.
smash buildings. And you know what? I'm here for it. So if you haven't seen Godzilla -1, truly it's one of those like few movies that I can think of that's like not overhyped. Like the hype is perfectly adequate for what
Yeah.
this movie is and how good it is. So
Yeah.
you go watch it. But speaking of other Netflix news, in the last week we received an interesting report from our lovely favorite streaming service Netflix that basically is breaking down what people were watching on Netflix in 2023. And specifically, the report that they released breaks down the shows that were watched from July to December. So it's focusing on the second half of, you know, of the last year. In that report, it was made very abundantly clear that anime is a major contributor to Netflix's overall viewing habits and successes. It is, you know, as you might have suspected, overperforming in Japan, but it is doing consistently well in, you know, the global markets that Netflix reaches. So as part of this, Netflix released the global numbers for its most watched animes series between July and December 2023 based on the total like number of hours watched. And you might have guesses as to what topped this list. But I would have never guessed. But I know Evan is really excited about who won. So Evan,
We always knew, baby.
Evan, tell me what the most watched anime series was in the second half of 2023 on Netflix.
Baki Boys, gang! Everybody knows it's Baki Hanma coming in.
Oh,
even
man.
I didn't see that coming. Baki
Even
Hanma,
our
take-
number
take your
one
victory
Baki
lap.
Hanma stand did not expect this.
Yeah,
did
take
not
that
see it
victory lap,
coming.
Evan. Take that
I
victory
think
lap,
that
Evan. Yeah.
one of the things that I always found, it was always tough with Netflix, especially because and this is true of a lot of streaming services, is that you don't necessarily know like how big an anime series is, because you know, a lot of places they keep their ratings close to their chest. I think like for us specifically, one of the ways that we would know is whether or not like the Crunchyroll servers would blow up with like Attack on Titan or Solo Leveling. But I never knew how like popular Baki was. I just didn't know. I knew that there were some people out there who liked it like I did, but like to see it, to get confirmation on it, it warms my dark heart. I love seeing Baki Hanma doing, my boy, the son of the ogre, doing so well.
I mean, yeah, it explains why we're getting like an original crossover with another fighting. Like Kengan Ashura was also on that like top 10 list or whatever. It's like number 8 or 9, which is still like, yeah, when you're in the millions of hours watched in an anime where they're like 30, like not even like 20 minutes a piece an episode, hours is a lot on top of that, right? Like it's like, yo, like
I mean, 14 million hours watched of Baki Hanma season 2 on Netflix in the second half of 2023. That's insane. That is, to put in context for, you know, people listening, that's more than the Demon Slayer Entertainment arc, the Mugen Train arc of Demon Slayer. That's more than Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 earned for, you know, the regions that, you know, has that. That's insane. That's an insane
Yeah,
amount
it's
of
wild.
hours
It's
being
wild.
watched for Baki Hanuma
Mhm.
globally. But another really interesting fact to take from this, which, as I adjust my glasses anime style, that I was very excited about is My Happy Marriage. Such a good show. It came in second place. And it
Mhm.
almost dethroned Baki. My Happy Marriage had 13.2 million hours watched. And I confess, I contributed probably 500,000 hours. I watched that show completely subbed, and then I immediately started rewatching it dubbed. It's sickeningly good, but it also just continues to like drive home my current obsession that the fact that romance and shoujo series are like on the comeback, which like I love that.
That's
Um,
good. That's
so
good.
yeah,
Mhm.
my Happy Marriage has also done extremely well. So
Yeah, when
just so
is
everyone
when is
knows.
Netflix gonna announce that Baki crossover? You know?
Oh my gosh, Baki versus
Baki,
My Happy Marriage.
Baki's
That would be
happy marriage. Print it. There we go.
that is sick. Yeah, but looking at the other franchises on this list, we have Pokemon with Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution.
Mhm.
Of course, the original GOAT Hunter x Hunter season 5 landed on the list. Record of Ragnarok, which is another Netflix title that we've talked about. King and
Wow, people
Ashura,
are
as Nick
watching that.
said.
Mhm.
People are watching it. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then at the very bottom of the list was 7.3 million hours of this kind of top 10 list. Howl's Moving Castle came in,
Mm.
for the regions that Netflix, has the rights to the Studio Ghibli films. Here in America, that's not the case, but in other places outside of the United States, that is the case. But yeah, it is an insane amount when you combine the reports of like the amount of hours watched of anime for the first half of 2023 and the second half of 2023 globally for Netflix. It's like it's either just under or just over 6 billion hours of content watched.
Jeez.
That's
Dang.
insane. It's pretty much split right down the middle. There was like 3.4 billion or something hours watched between July and December 2023. So the second half of 2023 had a little bit more anime watched than the first half for Netflix globally, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's pulling some serious weight.
that explains so much of like Netflix's recent announcements, right? You know, you
Mhm.
have Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider anime, which just got a
Mhm.
release date. Uh and the fact that like people started to debate, like, oh, why is it labeled an anime series? Well, this is why, right? Like when you
Yep.
have so many billions of hours of watching anime on your service, if you have an animated show, if on Netflix, I'm like, well, it is an anime. It's made by Powerhouse Animation. They do anime,
Mhm.
and that just makes tons of sense. Then you have the Kakagurui remake live action adaptation Western thing with Bet, right? Which is like, oh,
Mhm.
Mhm.
okay, they're trying to turn that anime into live action success. So it just all of this puts that in perspective for Netflix, and it just makes everything make so much more sense to me. Like when you lay out the numbers like that, that is wild.
Yeah, everyone's always like, "Wow, they're announcing so much stuff," and then Netflix releases one of their rare rating reports, and you go, "Oh, that's why. That's why they're investing. It's because it's successful."
Yes.
Uh, but yeah,
Who
so
would have
yeah,
knew?
we are obviously huge Netflix stan. We are all for making anime accessible. And it turns out Netflix is also number one Baki Hanma stan with Evan Valentine.
Yeah, we did
So
it.
speaking of places that, anime lives and breathes on, we've talked about Netflix. We constantly praise Crunchyroll and High Dive. Now it looks like TikTok's on that list. This
Mhm.
week, TikTok announced that it was forming an official partnership and endorsement in relationship with the anime industry, which everybody kind of stopped and raised their eyebrows at. But essentially, TikTok Japan released a press release, basically stating that it was officially partnering with the NAFCA. And so, what that stands for is the Nippon Anime and Film Culture Association. So, this is an organization that's really been growing in visibility within the anime industry over the last, I'd say, 2 years. That is really dedicated to revitalizing the anime industry in terms of work conditions in raising the next generation of animators and raising awareness for, work conditions, contracts, what it should look like to be able to produce, good content on time and being trained basically as thoroughly as you need to do that. And so basically, TikTok Japan was like, cool, well, we're going to partner with this. One, because anime is super successful, and we keep saying that. But two, it wants to use its platform basically to not only share content that is allowed to be distributed by the NAFCA, but also to release content that basically is, training material for animators. And so currently, no formal plans have been announced in terms of like what this content will look like that TikTok and the NAFCA are creating for the anime industry. But, I think it's a really interesting way for this organization that is so invested in, expanding the industry and bringing in more animators.
Mm-hmm.
That I think it's a great idea. I mean, TikTok is so ubiquitous, and disregarding its future in America, given all the legal going on right now. I mean, TikTok's a huge presence, globally at this point. So I think it's really interesting that TikTok has kind of made this stance, so publicly to be like, hey, we're partnering with this very, public and prevalent anime organization to help fuel the industry for the years to come. What do y'all think?
I think that number one, like we've reported a lot on what's the official name of the organization again? The Nippon.
It's the Nippon Anime and Film Culture Association.
Yeah, they're honestly, like, we've reported on them in the past, and they're such a worthwhile organization. I know that we had recently written up about how I believe Sony is making a anime academy that's just to make sure that more animators are entering the industry.
Mhm.
And it's great to see that there is more of a focus on not just creating more animators, but creating a worthwhile environment for them where they can be taken care of and they can have what they need, as well as, making a good wage in terms of creating this anime, because,
Mhm.
people are demanding more anime and we need more animators. And so seeing an organization like this and recognizing especially like a partnership with TikTok here, it's only going to be better for the fans. I think it's I can't wait to see kind of what they do with it.
Now, Nick, I want to know what you think, because me and Nick have had many conversations about TikTok as the app that I love obsessively. But Nick, you don't really use TikTok, right?
Yeah, as our resident old head, I do not. That is technology that is far beyond my years. I leave it to the children to enjoy.
I leave it to the small ones.
Yeah, like I'm like well past middle age. Like I'm nowhere near TikTok, but the thought of improving work conditions at all is a great one. And that's the thing. It's like Evan said, with the increase in demand, and just like Megan said with the Netflix hours, like that's still kind of ringing in my head. Like these people, like there's such a demand, a global need for anime and for new material as well. It's not just the older stuff. It's clearly like random shows. I mean, I hate to say this once again about Baki and My Happy Marriage. Like those are just completely two shots in the dark that ended up being super successful. And we won't have those shows without better work conditions, more animators, more people who are willing to dive into the industry. And you need it to be healthy in order to not only expand, but to thrive under this new era of demand. And that's kind of going to be absolutely necessary. So if it takes working with TikTok, a technology I do not understand, once more, a platform that I cannot get my head around, then so be it. Like if this is what it takes, good. Any progress moving forward is good.
Right. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, one thing that really stuck out to me when I saw this is, I mean, TikTok is a massive, massive, massive platform in Japan, but also globally. And, over the last several days, I know the three of us, we've covered the fact that Tatsuki Fujimoto, his one-shot manga Look Back, well, its movie is producing this year, and it just had a preview in Japan. And the poor director basically came forward and said, I worked on this movie until literally the night before it premiered at the preview. The preview version is not actually done. And I have lived in my office for the last 2.5 months to finish just the preview version. That's insane. And like the
Yeah.
whole team has been operating under a similar work production level. I feel like it goes without saying that that shouldn't have to be the case for any human to have to work like that to get that production done. But the demand is so intense. So I am a huge proponent of the NAFCA and really trying to raise awareness for, the next generation of creators in the anime sphere. So I'm all for it. Go to TikTok, go where you need to go. So with that, it's now time to talk about an old school anime because we have gotten an update on our one and only Uzumaki Naruto. For those who don't know, the show was meant to basically revive its original anime run by releasing several new episodes in honor of the 20th anniversary. Those were supposed to have gone live like months and months ago. But
Last
unfortunately, they were hit with a delay, and we've kind of not heard anything since about the situation. But now that no longer seems to be the case, it seems like we have been told essentially, the anime is coming. So, Nick, what's going on with this? Do you know about the Naruto stuff?
Yes. According to an exec at TV Tokyo, it's the broadcast station that airs Naruto. They are planning to, and this is still all kind of like in the air, and who knows. They are planning to release those 20th anniversary episodes within the fiscal year. And his quotes were like right around like by the end of the fiscal year, which means like we'll get it within the window up until March 2025, which is the end of fiscal 2024 or whatever. And that's a huge window. It's a shame because it's like, that's still like a whole year, year and a couple of months since they were originally supposed to hit. But at the same time, it at least gives us a window. Before, when it was delayed, like Megan said, it was delayed last fall. These are four planned episodes to like bring back the original Team 7, bring back the original Naruto, and like new animation and stuff like that were planned to release in fall, and within like a month's time too. They were going to start airing in September and release once a week until it finished, but then it got indefinitely delayed. And since then, we've had no updates. And it's the same here. This also isn't like a concrete update. This is just an executive going, we still plan to release it by 2025, around there. And it's just like, well, cool, man. But
yeah, it was Ichiro Ishikawa with, TV Tokyo that was in like like basically like a internal document from TV Tokyo for investors. It was like, hey, remember this Naruto thing we said we were doing? We're still working on it. It should be out this fiscal year, but like again, that's not a public statement or an official announcement by any release. But at this point, I mean, fans were starting to worry that they just gave up on it. I mean, unfortunately,
that's 100% it. Like at least we still know that they are doing it. Which makes a ton of sense because it is Naruto, and it's like Naruto is your biggest franchise, and if you're gonna do new Naruto episodes, I imagine like the response to new Naruto is going to be huge, even if it is once again notoriously going to be like original anime content, which is kind of like a funny full circle thing for Naruto, isn't it? People people used to complain about filler, but when we get this new filler, people are going to be like cheering for it. So it's going to be just hilarious when we finally get to see it. I do hope it's soon, but at least we do know that they're still working on it. They haven't forgotten about it. They haven't like dropped it in favor of Boruto, which is also another show that's on hiatus for them. So it's like, well, what's going on? We would like an update, please.
Yeah, we still don't know. Like, while those 4 original episodes of the first series might be coming out, we still don't know like what the future holds for Boruto Naruto Next Generation's anime adaptation return, as well as the arrival of Two Blue Vortex, the current sequel series that's taking place in the manga and everything. we could still be waiting years because, you know, as we've kind of reported in the past, Pierrot is taking a far more seasonal approach to everything. And we still don't know when the third core of Bleach's 1,000-year Blood War is coming out. We know it's coming out this year, but like, who knows? We could be waiting years to see Two Blue Vortex.
At this point, Bleach is probably coming out in the fall, like if anything, because if it were in the summer, we would have gotten an announcement already.
We would have to have known already.
Yeah.
So it's at least fall, or if not, we might get an Attack on Titan situation where they're like, you know, or a Demon Slayer situation where anime no longer fits in the seasonal schedules anymore. They can literally just be like, oh, hey, we're going to premiere in the middle of the fall season and you're just going to watch it anyway. And we'll be like, yes, please, may I have another? You know,
Bleach's title is far too long as it is to start throwing stuff like part 3, final chapters, special 1 on top of it.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, but they can also just drop it in the middle of December and start from there and just be like, now you're watching Bleach. And we'll be like, okay, cool. Thanks. We wanted this. Thank you. So, and that's, I mean, this is the way anime works now. And like we were saying, you know, as long as it means there are better work conditions behind the scenes, I'm fine with that too. Like, that's the other thing. I'm willing to wait if it means those you don't have a director like the Look Back director going, I was working on this literally until I aired it right now and screened it in front of all you. So like, I'm fine. If it means waiting, cool. It's just, the thing is, we just need to know. We just need to know, hey, we're still doing this. It's coming. Just be patient. I can be patient if I have a line, right?
Is perfect. Sometimes that's all I need to know is we have not forgotten. And I was like, cool, I'm good.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's all we need.
That's the future of Naruto. We'll see. Hopefully, you know, it does end up these special episodes. Hopefully, they find a way to come out, you know, before the year ends. But if not, we'll keep an eye on it. But to kind of wrap up our news segment, we're going to talk about the series that some on this show love and some on this show love to hate.
Oh man, that's hard.
Look, just listen to our episodes. They speak for themselves. My Hero Academia, which is a series that I love. And I'm literally getting a tattoo based on June 21st.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I know. I'm getting like several tattoos all at once. I'm just really going into my weeb era. But yeah, My Hero Academia, it is confirmed. The final war is done. This is kind of a spoiler territory talk because we are moving into discussion of basically the final arc. It has been confirmed that My Hero Academia has started its epilogue. We are now fully over the climactic hump of the series, and we are now going basically into resolution at this point. So the most recent chapter of My Hero Academia came out this week, chapter 424, and it ended, oh my God, I'm going to cry. It ended with Deku having a brand new Captain Marvel inspired, like, shaved head situation going on. But two, basically, you know, the chapter itself is titled Epilogue, and it basically sets up a series of like post-series follow-ups for Izuku, Bakugo, Ochako, Todoroki, Spinner, UA High School itself. My Hero Academia is moving into an epilogue. Now, the question is, how long does this last? To answer that question, the creator of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, shared an author's note. Thank God, or else everyone would be panicking, basically addressing the situation. And in an author's note, he wrote, quote, writing conventions say that the conclusion of a story should be short, but this is not the type of manga that can be immediately ended after the fighting is over. I'll keep going for a little while longer. We're going back to the title. So it looks like My Hero Academia is going to be getting a more extended epilogue, which is good because I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say goodbye. But two, and most importantly, it looks like the epilogue is going to really be kind of focused back on what really made me fall in love with My Hero Academia. We're getting back to the fact that these are young heroes in school. We're getting back to the academia part of the situation. And those kind of really nice, like, classroom slice of life moments. So again, we don't know how long this epilogue is going to last. Horikoshi seems to suggest it'll go on longer than we might expect, since he's, throwing away writing conventions at this point. I'm super excited for this. I feel like our characters really deserve a nice, long, fulfilling goodbye. I mean, good Lord, they've done so much for the anime industry in the last decade. But I want to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the epilogue?
Uh, the first, well, first, like, I'm very sad to see it go. And it hit me more than I thought when I was reading the chapter, just because My Hero Academia was like, it was a big factor. It was a big component in like anime getting big here in North America. I think like there's always, Dragon Ball and, One Piece have a major hand in that. But there's something about My Hero Academia. And one of the things that I was hoping, it's like, number one, I hope that this epilogue is really long. If it were up to me, I would want an individual chapter based on each of the students of 1A. I think that would be to kind of walk through like what they're doing in the future, and kind of like how they grow up to be, do they grow up to have their own agencies? What are they doing? How were they affected by the end game? And also, I mean, in a perfect world, I think I don't know if Nick will agree with this, but I would like the idea of Horikoshi handing off the universe to other creators in a similar fashion as Marvel and DC do. Because like Vigilantes is kind of like the perfect example of that, where Horikoshi wasn't in charge. Well, I don't necessarily know how much he was in charge of that, but the idea of like continuing to look at this universe through the eyes of other folks, whether they're a part of UA or whether they're looking at in the future, like I would like to see it personally. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
So I hope the epilogue moves on for a minute.
Yeah, speaking of that Vigilantes thing, it is wild that Vigilantes ended up being so important to the core of My Hero Academia. Like it ended up having a very official arc, like the Aizawa prequel leading into like because if you didn't read Vigilantes, that whole thing with Aizawa and Kurogiri and all those reveals would not hit as hard because you did not know the background leading up to that. And it's wild that, like Evan says, like it took a different creator who had the time to actually put that into place. And probably that is probably Horikoshi's ideas that he probably had on like a notepad somewhere he just couldn't get to within the scope of the series. And so, but speaking of the epilogue, I don't think it's going to last super long. We're definitely not going to 2025 with this. It will end before the end of the year. It's just a matter of how short. It's just a matter of how short it's going to be. I do think it's about maybe a good sense, like maybe like 10 or 12, a couple of months to like flesh out like just the characters that Megan outlined in like with the final pages of the epilogue chapter. That's kind of like, I think we're going to get just the core stories, like unfortunately, Evan, I don't think everyone is as important as like focusing a chapter on each of them. I think the most we're going to get.
But I really don't need a chapter on Mineta. I know that's low hanging fruit, but I don't need it.
Yeah, and it's like, is anyone like really vying for like the Hanta Sero ending where it's like, oh, I can't wait to see what the tape guy does at the end,
You say that, but
I'm sure I'm sure he has his fans, but like I'm pretty sure it's going to be like we're gonna get a couple of chapters fleshing out everyone's kind of finales in that way, just a final cap on how they feel after this war. And then I'm pretty sure, hopefully, dear God, I hope we get them moving to to year 2 finally. So like
I'm still freshman year.
Yeah, like this is their first year of school. And so I think it's like we're either going to end on one of those like, and now we move on to the future with Deku going into 2A. And, and since once again, big spoilers, he doesn't have his powers anymore. I wrote this up too way before, where like, Armored All Might kind of shows that Deku can fight with like a suit of armor. He can go Batman style and still be like a hero maybe, or or it is going to be the one like we joked about last week, where Deku's going to be like, "Oh, I still feel the ember in me," and it's going to fade away over time. But then at the end of the series, he's going to see his hand glow a little bit. He's going to like clench his fist. And then he's going to smile or something, and then there you go, all for one, or no, one for all still there within him. End. But no, I think the important thing is like these epilogue chapters have to explain why Deku becomes the world's greatest hero. And we need the, like, this narration here kind of goes back to, you know, and this is literally what I think this is what Horikoshi was referring to by going back to the title. It's kind of literally the story opens with Deku's narration from the future saying, and this is a story about how I became the greatest hero. And then it started turning into how we became the greatest heroes. And it's like, well, our story wasn't done yet. And it's like, well, which one is it, future Deku? Like we just need to close that loop. And I don't think it's going to take that long. Like, it's TLDR, just putting a cap on all this it's not going to take that long to get there. Well, couple of months, like not even by the fall, I think we'll be done. Like it's not going to be too long. Let's just enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, I think we don't get more than 10 chapters for the epilogue.
Yeah,
I think
like another volume, basically, right?
Yeah,
like another volume's worth.
An epilogue volume, essentially. Like a completely separate epilogue volume. And what I hope is that in those 10 chapters, we make some big time jumps that get us to graduation. Like, I'm going to be happy if that time jump gets us into year 2, through year 2, into 3, to them graduating. Like, I think that's what this epilogue needs to do now that we're at this point. I have enough faith in Horikoshi for him to be able to navigate those time jumps there. So again, we'll have to see, but we know it is confirmed. The epilogue is here. We are truly now in the My Hero Academia endgame.
Yeah.
So
it is cool because, you know, if this were any otter series, this would have been the end already. This would have been it. Like, the final battle ended last chapter. This would have been it. Like,
yeah, it would have been done. It would have been over. Yeah. So, but My Hero Academia, I mean, we don't have to tell you guys listening. It is royalty in the anime industry at this point and in the manga industry. So it gets a better farewell than most. So we'll put it that way. But the epilogue is here. And we'll just have to stay tuned. Expect to hear me cry about it a lot on this podcast. But now we do have to take a break. We got to pay for the show. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about Anime Expo 2024, talk about its schedule preview that was released today, and why it has the three of us incredibly stressed out. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Anime Initiative. We are here to talk about Anime Expo in the second half of our show. And if you are not super familiar with the anime industry, you honestly might be asking yourself, what in the world is Anime Expo? Well, let me tell you what. There's no one better to tell you than the three of us here, because myself, Nick, and Evan are intimately familiar with the highs and the lows of this wonderful convention. Just to give just the briefest bit of context, As I said earlier at the beginning of this episode, Anime Expo is essentially the San Diego Comic-Con here in America for anime. It is held in Los Angeles the first week of July. And, it started off very humble, very small, much like San Diego Comic-Con did many years ago. And I personally attend. I go every year. I've gone for many years. And something happened after, Anime Expo went, virtual for the pandemic. First year it was held back in person. There were so many people there. I thought I was going to be sick. The Anime Expo has truly become the premier destination, convention, and press media event for anime here in the United States. And it announced its schedule today for 2024. I looked at it. Of course I did, because, I've got to put my schedule together. And I read through everything, and I immediately just had to shut my computer because I thought I was going to cry in sheer stress. There are so many premieres and special panels going on this year at Anime Expo, which all of you listeners will want to know about, because basically Anime Expo is one of the major places that the industry goes to basically tease what they're working on for the rest of the year. So there's so much, guys. Just as a sampling, this isn't even half of it. We're getting the premiere of Oshinoko Season 2, the world premiere. We're getting a preview of the new, I can never say this right, Kinnikuman? Is that it?
You can, yeah, it's Kinnikuman, but also Ultimate Muscle, I guess.
Yeah,
Ultimate Muscle. I forgot that's how it's
muscle. Yeah.
See, I never knew that here in America. I always called it Kinnikuman. And then I was like, oh, yeah, there is also that. Well, it has a new show coming out. There's going to be a preview of it here at Anime Expo. They are hosting, speaking of Bleach, they're going to be having a big panel for Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War Core 3. So we will almost certainly find out the release date of the series at that event. We're having a big panel with Delicious in Dungeon, because the creator of that hit series is going to be at Anime Expo this year. Netflix's Terminator Zero is going to be releasing a special first look at the event. They're having a massive My Hero Academia panel, and they announced today that essentially they're bringing the main cast of the My Hero Academia Your Next movie that's coming out. So, if you put two and two together, you can assume that they're going to be doing something at Anime Expo this year with the new My Hero Academia film. We also have several studio panels that are being they're going to be held at the event this year, where new shows are going to be announced. This includes a Studio Orange panel, where they're already teasing, their next installation, in the wake of, things like Trigun Stampede and Beastars. And then Studio Bones and Kodansha have also announced that they're holding a big panel on the first day of the convention, where they will be announcing a brand new anime project. So everybody and their mother is, speculating about that. All of this doesn't even include the Warner Brothers Japan events that are being held. There's just so much, guys. How are we feeling? Are we feeling stressed right now?
I mean, as the ones covering it for the fine folks at home, yes. But as a fan, as a fan, no, not at all. Because it's going to be it's basically the anime Comic-Con, to put it in layman's terms, right? Where it's this is the big place that will get confirmations on things, big announcements, and if it's years past, we'll finally get some concrete information. Like Megan said, Bleach, we were just talking about we don't even know where that's hitting. That's probably when we'll get hey, this is coming out in fall. And if we're even luckier, we'll be we get a date, if we're lucky, and it's stuff like that. Terminator Zero we'll get the first look at, which is going to be awesome. I'm personally excited for Delicious in Dungeon, because season 1 ending very soon, and so that panel is a very good place to be hey, we're working on season 2, because as we know, Studio Trigger doesn't do sequels that much.
Yeah, and Studio Trigger is always a major presence at this event. So
yes,
put two and two together.
Yeah,
it is wild to see It is wild to see, and Megan can attest from going last year. It's wild to see how I know you had both kind of said like, oh yeah, it's like the San Diego Comic-Con for anime, but in recent years, it's almost I don't know the official numbers of people who have gone to it, but it almost seems like Anime Expo has more people in attendance than San Diego Comic-Con. And if you look at pictures from last year, like if you're claustrophobic, don't look at the pictures. Of
I
how many-
legitimately, I'm going to take this moment because you two know this story. So I had first day, had an interview to do 2023 Anime Expo, made my way in through the press entrance, did my interview, and then I had to get across. I had to book it across the entire Los Angeles Convention Center to get to my next event. I don't get claustrophobic very easily. I grew up going to a ton of concerts. Like I used to being in places with a lot of people. And I have never experienced a almost crowd crush situation like I
Oh.
did that first day at Anime Expo. And, it got better as, the day went on and obviously as the event went on in the following days. But when you look at the numbers for what Anime Expo is bringing in, these numbers are out of date. They're from 2018, 2019. They registered that there were at least 110, 115,000 paid attendees. This
Jeez.
was before the pandemic and anime's recent major boom. I would very easily not be surprised if we were getting 160, 170,000 people as of 2023 in terms of turnstile estimates for how many people, scanned badges to get in and out of the event. It was almost 400,000 turnstile,
Dang.
acknowledgements. For San Diego Comic-Con, last year attendance for just attendees was like 130,000. So we don't have turnstile estimates for what San Diego looks like, but just in terms of size and as somebody who goes to San Diego Comic-Con and who goes to Anime Expo, when I have to sit there and compare those apples to oranges, it is truly insane the amount of growth that Anime Expo has had. And that's right in line with the industry itself and seeing how the fandom has grown both here in America but globally, because Los Angeles is a very global point for these Japanese companies, distributors, publishers to come to and share what they've got going on. It
Yeah,
is
I mean,
nuts.
yeah, like while everything slowed down, anime continued to grow, right? And this is further reflected in Anime Expo, where San Diego Comic-Con didn't have this is amidst strikes and the pandemic stuff and all that stuff, like they didn't have the draw. And and like Megan says, like this is just booming. It's in the middle of like a huge explosion. And I don't know. I'm still kind of in the Netflix thing from the beginning of this episode.
When I said the word 6 billion, Netflix Nick went, what?
Yeah, I'm still
What did
in
you
that.
just
Like, yeah, I'm still in that. And that's just Netflix, right? Like when you think of that, and you look at the people, and it's like,
that's not
all makes
Crunchyroll
sense.
included. That's not Hulu. That's not Disney Plus. That's not Amazon. That's not High Dive. It's not including any of those. That's just global Netflix numbers. And I'm looking at my schedule again that I'm still trying to piece together and not cry for Anime Expo. But on the first day, Warner Brothers Japan, again, they're going to be having a big panel for Suicide Squad Isekai, which the three of us here have talked about ad nauseum how excited we are. But they're also going to show the first clip of Batman Ninja versus Yakuza League, which is the new sequel that was just recently announced to Batman Ninja, which was released in 2018. We're going to get the first clip of that sequel, which I'm super pumped about. And the list just goes on and on and on with the terms of, Kodansha, which is a publisher, behind series like Attack on Titan and Blue Lock. They're going to be there discussing, what their new licenses are. Viz Media will be there, Katakawa, Aniplex. If there's an anime that's doing well, there is almost certainly going to be a dedicated panel to that series at this event with talent from Japan, which is another defining feature of Anime Expo, is that this is an event here in America where we get really pretty unprecedented access to actual creators and actors from Japan. So in this preview, for those listening, I'm really just setting you up to say at the beginning of July, just expect like some of the craziest podcast episodes because we're just going to be like sunken eyed, haven't slept in 3 days, just
I mean,
spending for our lives with updates.
depending on what's announced, we might have to do like emergency podcasts, right? Like I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out what it's not gonna be Anime Initiative, it's gonna be Anime Emergency at that point.
Yeah.
We're gonna have like little symbols going around. There's just honestly, I have not seen a schedule for Anime Expo this stacked before. And they've had some pretty impressive schedules in the past. So, I mean, again, to kind of just invoke what we talked about earlier with the Netflix numbers, because now Nick has me thinking about it again.
Yeah, right. Like, like it all makes sense.
About San Diego Comic-Con. It's just so wild to me. And I know we have talked about these threads of conversation with anime on this show several times, but I feels like this year's schedule for Anime Expo has really just kind of like driven home for me how much investment globally the entertainment industry is putting into anime, because they are going all out to be at this event. And I am very excited. I am super pumped to, I can't talk about a lot of the opportunities I've got set up right now, but soon I will. And I'm very excited to be able to share those with everyone who's listening, all the interviews and exclusives that we have coming forward surrounded by Anime Expo. I am scared personally because it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm sure Nick and Evan feel that way as well. The three of us, as July always comes closer, the three of us are always like, how you feeling? Are you ready?
Yeah. Once again, it's also not just Anime Expo too. Like it's the start of the summer season in July. Like we're getting a whole new wave of premieres outside of the convention circuit. So like convention circuit's just news. We're gonna get like new anime. That Suicide Squad Isekai is premiering. Like we're getting tons of new stuff that like we are also going to have to keep an eye on. So we're basically all going to be like chameleons, like just eyes darting at like every direction, going, okay, here's the thing we got to keep track of. Here's something else. Here's something else. But for everyone at home, watching, listening, all that stuff, following us, Anime Initiative, we have plenty for you to just sit back and enjoy and absorb. So I can't wait for that. That's what's exciting. Yeah,
we're going to break it down in the most digestible way. The three of us are going to run around like chickens without heads for like 72 plus hours.
Yeah.
If we'll be fine. And then we get to do it all over again with San Diego Comic-Con later.
If you've ever wondered what it's like working at ComicBook, it's kind of like that scene from Minority Report where Tom Cruise is just kind of like moving all the digital screens and like looking around and everything. That's kind of our job on the daily. So.
It's like that, but it's also that mixed with that SpongeBob scene where he's like in his head and everything's kind of on fire and you see the little SpongeBob's running everywhere. So that's a little bit of mix of those. Yes, and as Megan said, our job here is to turn that into like alchemy, that into like a new thing where we can be like, oh, here's what you need to know, not everything that we've amassed over this weekend. Here's what you need to know.
Yeah, because we will have so many details. We will make them easily digestible for you. But in this preview of Anime Expo 2024, we here at Anime Initiative just want to let you guys know that the convention is going to have a lot, and we mean a lot, of major announcements coming forward in premieres and interviews. So with that said, it's about time to end the show. I know. It's pretty wild. We had a lot to talk about today. And you know what? There's still more that we could talk about. But you know what? Anime Expo schedule's out, and I gotta do some work. So if you've enjoyed listening to our show today here at Anime Initiative, please, wherever you find us, wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever that may be, leave us a review, leave us a 5-star review, ask us questions about anime, manga, webtoons, whatever it may be. Let us know how you're liking the show. Would you like to see more of? We are always eager to hear from you guys. And of course, if you can't figure out how to leave a review, but you know how to use social media, you can find us online. I can be found on social media at Megan Peters CB. If you want to talk to me, Evan, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the socials at EV Comedy. And as Megan said, like, feel free to reach out to us. We're all giant anime fans and we love talking about this stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. So, like, yeah, feel free to reach out to us on stuff. We love talking.
Nick, where are you at?
I'm at Valdizology on all the socials, but I also recently realized that I've never once checked my DMs. So apologies if you said something within the like.
Amazing.
I recently found out, hey, check those DMs. There are things in there that you should see. And so, yeah, I will be more attentive from now on. Apologies if anyone's ever reached out like in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, apologies. Once again, I don't know technology. I don't even know how I'm talking to you two here. I don't know how we're doing this.
Nick looks incredibly young, but he has like his soul is the equivalent of like the old man from Up. He's like Carl. Like that's his soul.
Yeah.
Like when I was like, hey, you need to like be looking on TikTok for anime stuff. Nick just looked at me like absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. I like if I'm not working, I'm napping. So
truly. You know what? That's it. That is your profile on this podcast. So if you want to listen to more nerdy discussions, we have other episodes of Anime Initiative that you can listen to. But beyond that, comicbook.com has an array of lovely shows. Of course, we have our flagship Comic Book Nation, where we talk about things all nerdy all the time. We also have Phase Zero, which is our Marvel show. We have Quick Save, which we talk about gaming on. The Pull List, which is all about comics. And we have A Wild Podcast has appeared, a Pokemon podcast that I co-host here with Christian Hoffer for comicbook.com. If you want to know my feelings on Vaporeon, which, trust me, actually, I don't know if you do, but I think you should listen to it. Other than that, we will be back next week with more anime news. So until then, talk to you later.